A man being confronted with his own words, in real time, under oath. Congressman Pat Ryan, a West Point graduate and combat veteran representing New York's 18th District, sat across from Elbridge Colby, the Pentagon's Undersecretary of Defense for Policy and one of the chief architects of this administration's so-called strategic vision. What followed was not a policy debate. It was a mirror held up to the face of an administration that campaigned on ending wars and is now, by every measurable standard, doing the opposite. Ryan didn't need opposition research. He just needed Colby's own writings and the president's own promises.
Quote, does that ring a bell?
I defer to you, sir. Where the source?
That was you, Mr. Colby. Quote, does the USA want to be the policeman of the Middle East, getting nothing but spending precious lives and trillions of dollars? Do we want to be there forever? Does that ring a bell?
I defer to you on the sourcing, sir.
That was actually President Trump in his first term. How about this one? Quote, we simply cannot afford to get enmeshed in a large Middle East war. That one?
I defer to you, sir.
That was actually you, Mr. Colby. One more time, quote, our interest, I think, very much is in not going to war with Iran. It would be a huge distraction of resources. It would be massively expensive to our country. That one?
Defer to you, sir.
That's the Vice President, Mr. Vance, in October of 2024. Last one. Quote, an intervention would not only cost American lives, but also consume vast munitions and equipment and distract American readiness from Asia, harming U.S. capacity to deter China. That one?
Defer to you on sourcing, sir.
And I'm not trying to play gotcha. I'm trying to understand a massive inconsistency in what you've said and others in the administration. That was actually from a piece that you wrote. I'll put the title up just to help recall. I think it's pretty straightforward, and I remember reading it and largely agreeing with it at the time. The subhead of the piece, the title, Don't Let Iran Distract from China. The subhead, Beijing's bid to dominate Asia is a far greater threat than anything Tehran can do in the Middle East. Mr. Chairman, I ask unanimous consent to enter this article from the Wall Street Journal, by the way, into the record.
Without objection, so ordered.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Colby, my question is, do you still believe this?
Excuse me. Sir, I don't think we are going to be distracted. We're very conscious of this, the strategy and the efforts of the department, including $1.5 trillion.
Not the distraction piece. I mean, you're very clear that it's a mistake, that there's a far greater threat.
Sir, I don't think the current operations are a mistake. I think we are scoping the military objectives in light of the overall strategy under the President's direction. They are reasonable and attainable military objectives.
In the interest of time, I think any reasonable observer would say there's a massive inconsistency in what you've said for years and frankly dedicate a lot of your personal career to before this position versus what you're doing now. So the question is, were you wrong then or are you wrong now?
I don't agree with your characterization, sir.
That's fine. And to bring it to the present moment, as many of my colleagues have quoted, the National Defense Strategy, which you wrote, or helped lead anyway, which was signed by the Secretary of Defense, which was approved by the President, begins with a line that, for good reason, has been repeated many times today, and I'll repeat it again on the record. No longer will the department be distracted by interventionism, endless wars, regime change, and nation building. In case that wasn't crystal clear, in October 2024, then candidate Trump said, quote, you're not going to have a war with me. In case that wasn't clear, in his victory speech on election night, he said, quote, I'm not going to start a war. I'm going to stop wars. My constituents, the American people, everybody watching this, how could we consider that anything but just a straight up betrayal of promises made and a lack of any strategic coherence? I frankly think, and I don't use this word lightly, I think you are lying to the American people about it. I think the Vice President has lied about it. The President is lying about it. And to bring it into stark relief is these 6 brave patriots that we lost. And don't you think we at least owe them and their tremendous sacrifice, which our nation is grateful for, just being honest? And you came in here and 3 or 4 times, at least when I was in the room, going out of your way to say, I'm a loyal lieutenant to the President. And I know you're exhausted because I don't think you actually agree with a lot of what he's doing. So I'm going to give you a chance to at least say that.
Well, I fully reject your characterization, sir, and I am being honest. And I think this is this administration is going to be prepared for peace through strength, and that's what the president's talked about.
Gentleman's
has
time
delivered
expired.
peace.
Chair now recognizes.
Congressman Pat Ryan did something remarkably simple today. He didn't rely on Democratic talking points. He didn't cite liberal think tanks or opposition research. He used the words of the very people sitting across from him. He quoted J.D. Vance, and he quoted Elbridge Colby to Elbridge Colby's face. And every single time, Mr. Colby's response was the same: I defer to you on sourcing. Sir, the Undersecretary of Defense for Policy, the man tasked with shaping the strategic direction of the most powerful military on earth, could not or would not recognize his own published writings in the Wall Street Journal. Ryan laid out 4 quotes. One from Trump's first term, warning against being the policeman of the Middle East. One from Colby himself, cautioning against a large-scale Middle East war. One from Vice President Vance, just months before the election, calling an Iran conflict a huge distraction and massively expensive. And one more from Colby's own Wall Street Journal op-ed titled, Don't Let Iran Distract from China. The subheadline read, Beijing's bid to dominate Asia is a far greater threat than anything Tehran can do in the Middle East. That wasn't written by a Democratic strategist. That was written by the man who now oversees Pentagon policy and who today sat before Congress unable to reconcile a single word of it with what this administration is actually doing. And here's what makes this more than just a Washington gotcha moment. This is about a pattern this administration has repeated on issue after issue. Campaign on one thing, govern on the opposite, and when confronted, deploy the most hollow phrase in the bureaucratic playbook. I don't agree with your characterization. That was Colby's answer when Ryan asked him a binary question that any honest person could answer. Were you wrong then, or are you wrong now? He couldn't say either because both answers are devastating. Ryan then did something even more pointed. He read directly from the National Defense Strategy, a document Colby himself helped author, signed by the Secretary of Defense, approved by the President. Its opening line, no longer will the department be distracted by interventionism, endless wars, regime change, and nation building. That is not an obscure footnote. That is the thesis statement of this administration's defense posture. And let's not forget the human cost that Ryan brought into the room, the 6 service members who gave their lives. He didn't invoke them for political theater. He invoked them because that is the ultimate measure of policy. Not op-eds, not campaign slogans, not confirmation hearings, but whether the decisions made in rooms like that one are worth the lives they cost. And when Ryan said, and I'm paraphrasing, don't we owe them at least honesty? The silence from the other side of that table told you everything you needed to know. What we saw today was not a partisan attack. It was an act of accountability by a combat veteran who has sat where those 6 service members sat, who knows what it means to be sent into harm's way and to trust that the people making those decisions believe in them. Pat Ryan clearly does not believe this administration believes in its own strategy. And based on the evidence presented today, their own words, their own writings, their own promises, it's hard to argue he's wrong.